Before we begin, if you enjoy faith-based storytelling that makes you think, challenges perspectives, and explores real-life situations through the lens of faith, please consider subscribing to The Narrow Path. Your subscriptions, likes, comments, and shares help this channel reach more people so that together we can grow, learn, and have meaningful conversations. Now let's continue the story. In part 1, you heard Marcus's side, a husband who believed his wife left because he chose to keep the commandments, a man trying to lead his family according to his convictions, a father who felt abandoned. But every story has more than one voice, and sometimes the person who walks away isn't running from truth. They're running from pain. Everyone thinks they know why I left. Most people hear Marcus's story and immediately make up their minds. He started keeping the commandments. I couldn't handle it. I packed my bags and walked away. Simple. At least that's how the story sounds when it's told in a single sentence. But life is rarely that simple. As I sat in my car that night, watching the porch light grow smaller in the rearview mirror, I wasn't angry. I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't running from truth. I was exhausted. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself to cry. Not because I stopped loving my husband, but because I still loved him. And that was what made leaving hurt so much. The strange thing is, I was proud of Marcus in the beginning. I remember the excitement in his voice when he discovered something new in Scripture. His eyes lit up like a child opening gifts on a birthday morning. He would sit across from me at the kitchen table and say, "Listen to this." Then he would read passage after passage with so much enthusiasm that I couldn't help but smile. For the first time in years, he seemed spiritually alive, and I loved seeing that version of him. What people don't understand is that I never hated the commandments. I listened, I learned, I asked questions. Sometimes we stayed up late, talking about faith, family, and purpose. Those conversations were some of my favorites, because they brought us together, at least in the beginning. But eventually, something changed. Not overnight, not all at once, just little pieces at a time. One sermon became two became 5. Then every evening belonged to a teacher on a screen. Date nights disappeared. Long conversations disappeared. At first I told myself it was temporary, but weeks became months. And slowly I started feeling like a guest in my own marriage. Loneliness doesn't always happen when someone leaves. Sometimes loneliness happens while they're sitting in the same room. I would prepare dinner, set the table, call everyone to eat, and Marcus would still be watching another lesson, another debate, another live stream. I kept waiting for him to look up and ask me how my day was. Sometimes he did. Most times he didn't. The children noticed first. Children always do. Caleb became quieter. Naomi became more observant. They watched our faces the way sailors watch the sky before a storm. The laughter at our dinner table slowly disappeared. Not because we stopped loving each other, but because tension had moved into our home and made itself comfortable. One afternoon, Naomi came running into the room with a drawing she had worked on for nearly an hour. She was so excited. "Daddy, look!" Marcus glanced up for only a moment. "That's nice, baby." Then he looked back at the screen. It only lasted a few seconds, but I watched her smile disappear. And I realized something. The people who needed Marcus most were beginning to compete with everything else for his attention. I wasn't angry. I was grieving. Grieving a marriage that still existed on paper but no longer felt the same in practice. Grieving conversations we no longer had. Grieving moments we no longer shared. And most of all, grieving the feeling of being seen. The night I asked, "Do you still see me?" wasn't meant to start an argument. It was a plea, one last attempt to be heard. I wasn't asking him to choose me over Yah. I was asking him to remember his family while serving Yah. But I don't think he understood that. And maybe I didn't explain it well enough. The day we left felt unreal. Nobody won. Nobody celebrated. There were no villains standing at the doorway, only two broken people who loved each other and no longer knew how to reach each other. As I watched Caleb and Naomi hug their father goodbye, I felt my heart breaking all over again. Marcus believed I left because he started keeping the commandments. That wasn't the whole truth, but neither was my version, because there were things I never told him, things I kept buried, things that changed everything. You've heard Marcus and Danielle's side, but what really happened? What was the truth neither of them could see? In part 3, everything changes, because sometimes the problem isn't what was said, it's what was never understood. Stay tuned.